Comparison is Killing Me Slowly by Natasha Romanov Official, A Shade of Green. Chapter 3. Some clueless baron with no sense of subtlety. Peter couldn't believe his luck. Well, at this point he wasn't sure if it was good luck or absolutely horrible luck. He had left the tower 2 days ago, and, after checking in with Friday, nobody had noticed he was gone yet. This was both fantastic and outrageous. What if he had been kidnapped or something? He could have been dead and they would never know. But then again, he had sort of wanted this, so could he really complain that his plan was working? Ouch! He was startled out of his thoughts as fury ran the comb through his hair just a little too hard. Sorry, Fury mumbled. Your hair is too curly for me to be able to brush it out painlessly. He began running copious amounts of hair gel through his curls to slick back his hair. You know what they say, Peter? Beauty is pain? Peter asked. Well, yes, but no, Fury said thoughtfully, and then paused. You know what, yours was better, I'm not going to say mine now. Peter raised his eyebrows and then winced again when the comb pulled his hair. All right, Peter, are you feeling ready? Fury asked. Who are you tonight? Adrian Vanderberg, heir to Vanderberg Tech, classy 23-year-old playboy with money to blow and time to spare. Peter paused. You know, new teachers at my school still mistake me for a 12-year-old. Are you sure I can pass for a 23-year-old? Please, it'll be fine. Nobody ever really cares how old people are anyway, especially out here in Hollywood. Fury said, then added as an afterthought. That's actually more concerning considering you're supposed to be a playboy, and pretty much everyone at this event will be very... He trailed off. Never mind, you'll be fine. Peter shrugged. Fury was trustworthy, and if he said he would be okay, then he'd probably be okay. Even if Tony and all the other Avengers underestimated him all the time, Fury never made that mistake. All right, stand up, Adrian, and give me some arrogant greeting. Peter stood up carefully, his usually gangly limbs much less flexible, in his brand new, very tight suit. He turned to Fury, looking him up and down, and gave him a curt nod, extending his hand. Vanderberg. And then, as an afterthought, Adrian Vanderberg. Fury stared at him, and doubled over laughing. What do you think this is, Mr. Bond James Bond? Peter blushed slightly and put his hand back at his side. All right, I admit that was a little too much. Should have just said Adrian, huh? Then add the last name and act like I'm confused if they don't know what I mean when I just say Adrian. That seems pretty arrogant, right? Fury shook his head, remembering that it was actually very important for Peter's cover not to be blown. It was actually a little impressive how much thought his nephew was putting into this. Yeah, that sounds good actually. Try again with that. After a couple of hours of practicing greetings and situations, they got into a limo with tinted windows and went over their final plan again. So, I just have to meet this guy, Zemo, and figure out where his house is, Peter clarified. Yes, I would find his staff and find some way to get them to spill it, Fury confirmed. He looked his nephew over and put a comforting arm around him. What, is this your first high society Hollywood party? Peter chuckled at the teasing. He had honestly thought it would be Tony taking him to his first gala. Yeah, I guess it is. Too bad it's all for business. Fury laughed at this. I promise you would much rather be in one of these on business than have nothing else to do. They're a bit overwhelming. He turned to face Peter, his playful expression suddenly morphing into a very serious, slightly anxious one. If anything goes wrong, Peter, leave immediately. Don't wait around, don't keep trying to get the location. Just get out of there, okay? Those guys in there are not the kinds of people you want to mess with. Understand me? Peter nodded solemnly, deciding it was best not to argue. He had this covered. He was Adrian Vanderberg. The car rolled to a stop, and Peter peered out of the tinted windows. Cameras were flashing, questions were being shouted. "Wow, it's like my greatest nightmare on steroids," he muttered. Fury gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "I'll be on comms the whole time, kid. We don't have many of our men in there, though, so be careful. You hear me?" Peter nodded. "Don't do anything I would do, but definitely don't do anything I wouldn't do." Peter's expression dropped slightly at the thought of his father. What was he doing right now? Probably working in the lab with Harley, or maybe having another family dinner with everyone. How long before they noticed that every night for the last few days his chair had been empty? How could they not notice that food was disappearing at a normal rate? Well, whatever. Peter dismissed it half-heartedly. As long as they didn't care, he could stay on this mission. He could do the world good. "There's this nice grey area. That's where you operate." Well, not tonight. Tonight he was Adrian Vanderberg, heir to Vanderberg Tech, a classy 23-year-old playboy with money to blow and time to spare, and he would operate how he wanted, damn it. "All right, kid, this is your stop." Had Peter been allowed to be around Fury more often, he would have noticed a slight shake in Fury's voice, would have noticed how worried his uncle truly was about him going on this mission. But since he hadn't, he turned and nodded at his uncle, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car with a much-practiced smooth grace. He looked boredly around and began his walk towards the large, well-lit building, ignoring the cameras and paparazzi as he strode confidently down the faux red carpet. Hey, you gotta introduce yourself, sir!" Peter turned sharply towards the reporter, yelling at him, and gave him a disdainful look through his tinted sunglasses. God, he must look like Tony right now. "Is that really necessary?" he drawled. The reporter took a half step back, and then continued with more energy. "Sir, could we have a name?" "Adrian," he said, and then added, "Vanderberg." Just like they practiced. The reporter shoved a microphone toward him, asking, "And what do you do, Vanderberg?" He gave a small chuckle, and said, with just enough of an air of superiority that it seemed like confidence and charm, "Nothing yet. I'm the heir to Vanderberg Tech." "Aren't you a little young to be attending such a high-class party?" Peter raised his eyebrows at the reporter and laughed, looking around him. He leaned in and said, "Don't go around assuming things like age. You know what they say about people who do that." He laughed again and then leaned back again. "Is that all?" The reporter nodded, his mouth a thin line, and Peter strode away and into the building. He had done it. First step down. Get inside. "I made it in," Peter muttered under his breath. "Good. Now get eyes on Zemo." Fury's voice rang clearly from the earpiece. Peter began to walk slowly and without any sense of direction through the crowd, eyes scanning the room carefully. There was a tap on his shoulder, and Peter turned around to face the person, eyebrows raised. Zemo. Well, that was easy. "Excuse me, but you look a little lost," Zemo said slowly, looking Peter up and down. Sizing him up. Did he know? Peter laughed softly. "I'm sorry I gave you that impression." Zemo smirked. "So you aren't in need of assistance?" Peter looked around the room. "Well, now that you say it, maybe I could get an escort to the bar. Wouldn't want to get lost in the crowd." Zemo chuckled and began to lead him through the crowd, weaving between tall men in dark suits and heeled women in long, glittery gowns. Maybe it was a good thing he got an escort. Even with being one of the tallest in his class, Peter was still several inches shorter than anyone else there. "Peter, did you find him?" Fury asked. "Yup," he muttered under his breath. "Headed to the bar." "Good. One of our agents is working there." Peter settled standing in front of the bar next to Zemo, who looked at him expectantly. "What do you want?" the Baron asked. "I'm not sure. What's good here?" Peter asked back. Zemo chuckled and ordered both of them some obscure drink Peter had never heard of. Hopefully it won't be too noticeable that he does not drink alcohol on the regular. Peter accepted the drink with a knowing look from the bartender and took a sip. Oh, thank goodness, it was just Coke and ice. Now, when I asked you the first time, I don't think you completely understood what I meant. Peter looked at Zemo expectantly. What do you want? The man asked again. Peter looked at him and made the split-second choice to play dumb. I don't know. Right now I wish I had some more comfortable clothes on. Fury immediately hissed in his ear. Don't provoke him, Peter. But Peter ignored him. He had a plan, and besides, he couldn't really answer without calling even more attention to himself. Zemo scoffed and leaned in. I know who you really are. What do you want? His spider sense had been going off ever since he got to the party, but it suddenly picked up, buzzing more insistently. Peter tilted his head to the side. Thank goodness, I was beginning to think nobody knew the Vanderberg name. Zemo's eyes darkened slightly as he looked Peter up and down, this time clearly sizing Peter up. I don't like to repeat myself, Peter Stark. Answer my question. Peter raised his eyebrows. Right, Peter, I'm pulling the plug. Get out of there, Fury said tensely. Stark? Peter asked slowly, eyeing Zemo. Peter, no. Get out now, Fury said. Yes, Zemo answered. I have no relation to the Starks, Peter returned. Sure, of course you don't. It will allow us to pretend that's true. Zemo sneered. You still haven't answered my question. Can't a guy just go to a party? I highly doubt you flew all the way across the country just for a couple hours of mingling, Zemo countered. Well, that's why you're here, right? You have no other secret reason? Peter asked innocently. Zemo glared at him and leaned in to whisper in Peter's ear, and right into the mic. I will be keeping a close eye on you, Stark. Peter glared at him, put a hand on the man's chest, and pushed him gently away. You do that, and enjoy all that mingling you came here to do. Zemo sneered again, looking at Peter with a clenched jaw. Why are you here? He asked again, his anger beginning to show through his low voice. I don't know, Zemo. Maybe I needed to make sure that you were out tonight. You know, not at home. Peter watched the man react slowly, trying to control his facial expression. If anything's different about my house, I'll know who to kill, Zemo threatened quietly, and spun around, striding away and out of sight. Bit of a weak threat, don't you think? Peter muttered to Fury, who gave a very loud sigh of relief. I said to get out of there, Peter. Now we have no way to know where his home is, and you're being threatened already. Peter, we're 5 minutes into the mission, and You know what, I'm pulling the plug. This is over. I put a tracker on him, Peter said quietly. There was a pause. You did? Fury asked. Yeah, and he should be heading to his house right now, considering I just made him think that people are raiding it right now. There was a chuckle from Fury's end. Man, you really are something else, kid. Peter smiled, and then he remembered. If his mission went as planned and stayed secret, his family would never figure out how much they underestimated him. At least Fury was proud. Peter slid into the limo and was surprised to see a woman sitting next to Fury. She had an official suit on, a tight bun, and a very serious expression. Peter looked from her to Fury, who cleared his throat. Good work, Peter. We have eyes on Zemo's location, all thanks to you. Peter closed his eyes for a minute, taking in the compliment. He would never admit it, but he let his mind drift away, imagining that it was Tony congratulating him. Good work, kid. He wondered what Tony was doing now, maybe congratulating Harley for something. Something not nearly as cool as what Peter had just done, but Tony would never find out about this. so it didn't matter. And no thanks to you, the woman said, looking at Fury. She turned to Peter. Look, we understand how capable you are of doing this mission. Are you pulling me out? Peter asked regretfully. If he got fired on his first mission, he would never be asked back again, and then all this time with his family not noticing him missing would be wasted. No, Peter, the woman said. Her tone had softened slightly, but Peter could still see the hostility when she looked at his uncle. We're taking Director Fury off the case. Peter's head shot up. What? I can't do this without him. We understand your hesitance, the woman said. We believe Director Fury to be capable of leading missions such as these, but not when the agent is someone he's close to. He tried to pull you out of the situation at the first sign of hostility, and if you had listened to his instructions, the first phase of the mission would have already failed. Peter looked at Fury, eyes wide. Fury shook his head. It's all right, Pete. If you want to continue the mission, then do it. But if you need me... He looked at the woman, unsure. Peter turned to her too, and gave her his signature puppy dog eyes. Please, ma'am, I really don't think I would have even made it this far without Director Fury. The woman sighed. He can supervise your mission, he can be on comms, but he will not be staying in California. Peter's face fell. So he was going to be completely alone? But he couldn't just back out of this mission. The whole point of the trip was the mission, not to actually get some attention and praise from an adult. Although that was a nice perk. All right, Peter sighed. If that's what you really think is best, I'll go on my own. Peter slumped into his seat, smushed close against Fury's side. If Tony found this footage, he would be proud, Fury whispered to the teen. No, Peter answered. If Tony found that footage, he would be pissed. Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this chapter. Have a lovely rest of your day.